heart God had moved, that means God had to interact with that individual. That certain individual, God had to move on that person's heart to do something. And what that did was, because as you can see, that divided the people, the Israelites, that divided them. As it says, some of the Israelites that had been in Babylonia, I think it was for 70 years, they actually did not want to leave. Who else does that put you in the mind of? And the lady who looked back, and when God told her not to look back.
Not to look back. When she looked back, she turned into a pillar of salt.
There you go. So God had to move on their hearts. Because what that lady did was, she had got deeply rooted into Sodom and Gomorrah. Into the city.
Those are her people.
Huh?
Those are her people.
Right.
Parents and brothers and sisters, all of that.
So she was deeply rooted, and she did not want to leave what she was comfortable with, even though it was against the Lord. And so these people, these Israelites, they had became rooted in Babylonia. So therefore, they did not want to leave, even though God wanted them to come back. So it says here that everyone whose heart God had moved. So God had to move on their hearts. To this very day, God has to move on so different individuals' heart to do things. Any questions or comments on that?
Could it have also been that they had got scared of the unknown, the unseen? So they knew what they had going on here, but they wasn't for sure what was going to be going on over there. So fear of change, I would say. Do you think a fear of change played a part of it?
Well, we have to go back. What it says, see, that's why I said this was a very powerful statement. What you're saying there is I guess you have to say is connected with this. Everyone whose heart God had moved. So you're saying that maybe they didn't know, they wasn't comfortable with the unknown. But this is saying about whose heart God had moved on. So it didn't matter about, like Abraham. He was going out, and he didn't know where he was going. But God worked with Abraham, and he guided him. So Abraham trusted God. You see how it ties in?
That's what I was looking for.
Right. So
it's about trust.
Right. So even though some of the people wasn't used to, or wasn't I'm trying to think of the name of it. They was apprehensive about going somewhere where they were unfamiliar with, because some of those people were born in Babylon, so they didn't know about the Israel from where they had been taken from. So, but because God moved on their hearts, they was ready to go back to Israel. Okay. All right. What we got here? Can I get someone to read for me number 1, Zerubbabel honored?
All work on rebuilding the temple had been halted for 17 years, and God's people had lost hope ever finishing what they had started. But then the word of the Lord came into the prophet Haggai. God instructed him to tell Zerubbabel that he would literally move heaven and earth, Haggai 2:20, to accomplish his plan. God's plan was not only that the temple would be rebuilt, but that Zerubbabel would be honored. God says that he will make Zerubbabel like a signet ring on his finger. In biblical times, signet ring was used as one signature and symbolized a pledge, a guarantee of payment of fulfilling one promise. God was promising to not only honor Zerubbabel, but he was also telling his people that he would fulfill his promises to them. It was time for his people to once again return to him and the work he had called them to do.
Thank you. All right, thank you there. So God was telling God was telling Haggai to preach to the people, and the people, I guess maybe they was a bit apprehensive. They wasn't sure, but God was telling them, hey, listen to him. I want you to listen to him because I will do what I said I would do. Whatever my promises to you was, I would fulfill them. And I just want you to rebuild my holy temple. But if you notice here, let's see. I think that was it. The people actually, they from Samaria, they were not wanting the Israelites to do the rebuild of the temple, and so they was actually getting people to work against them, and because of that, then the work on the holy temple had been halted, had been stopped for 17 years. So this displeased God. Yes, sir.
What do you see yourself?
All right. So this is what God wanted them to do. He wanted them to rebuild his holy temple. And so, but as you can see, they were fighting against a mountain of opposition, and they were yet and still having a hard and difficult time to because they wanted to obey the Lord. They wanted to get what God wanted them to do done. But because they were facing such a hard opposition, then they ended up stopping the rebuilding of God's temple.
What opposition?
The opposition is by the Sumerians. They did not want that. They did not want them to rebuild that holy temple. So, but how many of y'all know out there that sometimes it can be delayed, but it won't be stopped? It can be delayed because it tells you right here it was delayed by 17 years, but it would not be stopped. Okay, right. Can I get someone else to read the next God's promises? God's promise. Anybody? Okay,
You must remember.
we must remember that's right.
All right. We must remember that Haggai was speaking eschatologically to a definite circumstance. The temple was being restored, but it was very slow, but at a very slow rate. It wouldn't be finished until 516 BC. However, in this astrological promise was hope for what will be. This made clear what Zerubbabel represented for the nation. Was his signet ring. He would pull it off his hand and give it to him over Nebuchadnezzar. Possibly Haggai was saying that